first, can you tell our audience a little bit, in case they're not familiar with Brené's work, a little bit about her? And I know you trained in her methods, and then sort of what this wholehearted living thing is all about.
Yes, thanks. And really, thanks for having me, and thanks for having this whole forum for, the group that you have and the work that you do. So thank you. Yeah, Brené, I'm a total fangirl too. Brené started off as a psychologist, turning into research, which ended up research about shame. Then she did this TED talk about being vulnerable. It kind of went viral, and she's now like an author, speaker, influencer, all on helping people embrace their authenticity by being vulnerable, erasing shame from their lives. And she also has transitioned a lot of the work into the professional realm with her Dare to Lead options. She's got a show on Netflix and programs. And so the training, Certified Daring Way or Dare to Lead facilitators, just facilitate that work through either individual coaching or group work around the globe, really. So it's changed my life, and that is why I love being able to teach it to others.
Wow. Yeah, that's so powerful. I mean, I'm a huge Brené fan, and I've watched TED Talks and read her books. And so I just was so excited when I heard that you incorporate so much of her work into your work, and was excited to hear, you talk about especially these 10 tips for wholehearted living. So I would love to hear more about those.
Yeah, so I even have the two books just so people can see them. This is the old version. You can see my little sticky notes, but she re-released it. It's a 10-year anniversary of The Gifts of Imperfection. So they're in the Gifts of Imperfection book, the subtitle being How to Let Go of What People Think of You and Embrace Who You Really Are. But the 10 guideposts are what came out of her research as practices, skills, actions, and choices that we can make in our own lives to help do that. I'll be honest, it took me a couple of years to really understand how the book could impact me that way, because when we think, I want to learn how to be myself, I wasn't expecting tools like this, action choices, but that's what it is. And so when you, as your readers, if they go through the list of the 10, whether they read the book or through the workbook that I know you're going to post, there are the 10 tools. And when you realize that those are actions that when we put into practice in our life, then that means I am embracing my needs, my desires, my interests. Then what others think of me and my pull and responsibility towards others just kind of falls to the back side of my brain, as opposed to the front side that I'm usually driven by. So that's how they work.
Wow. And what is exactly what does she mean by wholehearted living?
Yeah, it's a term that I believe she might have even trademarked. It's just being able to live with your whole self. That heart, she even uses the word courage, the origin word of that being core is the heart. And so living with your whole heart is something courageous. And it's not in the absence of fear or doubt or the things that we all struggle with, but it's in the face of them, to move forward in the face of it. And so living with your whole heart, these are brave steps. They sound like soft skills is what a lot of people, say, but there's nothing easy about them. They're all very brave options to put yourself out there.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, so take us through, I don't know if we have time. Do you want to take us through all of them or some of them, or however you want to frame this for us?
I know. I thought about that. I was like, oh my gosh, I just love it. I could pour myself into every one of them. So I did. I picked up a couple, but I will say, I'll go through one thing. Like when you go through the 10, and I'm going to show you my black and white copy of the 10. The way that they read, when you look at the graphic that is in the workbook that your audience can look at later, it has two sides. One, to let go of what people think and cultivate creativity or authenticity. And so what I recommend is when people look at the list is we usually can resonate with one side of it. I want to either let go of my anxiety and perfectionism, but then to look at the other side of what then do we need to cultivate? What do we need to practice? What behaviors then? So there's what people think and practicing authenticity. Perfectionism is a big one, I know, for us. And so the antidote to perfectionism is self-compassion. So imagine putting that into practice. If I want to let go of my perfectionism, whether it's a blog I'm writing, or how I'm parenting my kids, or how I show up with makeup and hair, if I want to let go of that, I need to practice self-compassion. And so suddenly when I shift my energy towards that, then my perfectionism kind of fades closer to the background, because I am being kinder to myself, giving myself more grace for, for things that don't have to be perfect.
Yeah, it's interesting because the idea of perfection is such a hard thing to let go of. It. We said don't be such a perfectionist, but then actually putting it into practice without having a tool or something to, okay, well, if I'm not going to be a perfectionist, then what, how do
what am I going to be?
That? Right.
Yeah.
And so I love the idea, the flip side of that. And it's like just being kind to yourself and not demanding such, ridiculous standards of yourself.
Right. And then suddenly you're not feeling that perfectionist gremlin, is what she calls a lot of my gremlins. Another one that I thought was big, and I'll be honest, I think quarantine did a lot of this for us, is not using productivity and busyness as worthiness and self-worth. And so exhaustion as a status symbol, because, I'm guilty of it. We get busy, productive, I need to be doing things. And if I'm not, then that makes me something less than, or lazy, or whatever. But so the antithesis of that is to cultivate play and rest.
My God, I'm so bad at this.
We are. And we aren't, because especially now, our calendars got jacked back up.
Yeah.
And so is it that we have to do these things, or is there something about me that I'm thinking I have to be productive in order to be worthy of something, or good enough, or to feel like people will think highly of me? But if I can then cultivate the play and rest that I need in my life, then my work side will be fulfilling and my leisure side will be fulfilling. Because typically we want to use I have free time and I'm going to do some emails in between. And so then it's not leisure and it's not productive. And so for it to be wholehearted and fully satisfying, commit to full free leisure time. So then your productive time is productive and satisfying.
Wow. Yeah, I like that. And is it just like picking one thing to start with? I mean, like just, okay, play. And, it sounds, I don't even know what play really is anymore, like, what is that? What does play mean when you're an adult? I mean, I remember when my kids were little and that was easy, to play. Well, now I have a puppy, so we definitely play. So that's play. But because do I have to have a toddler or a puppy to know how to play? Like, what does play mean?
Not at all. And that's interesting that you say that, because I do think that that's something that gets us into our midlife crisis, is suddenly we arrive to our fancy adulting responsibilities and we lose the permission to go find new things that we enjoy just for enjoyment. And so we get stuck in our ruts or our have-tos and must-dos. And so, as a kid, I did ice skating, reading, Barbie, softball, music. And so half of them fell out and then something stuck. And I think we can do the same as adults. Just give yourself permission to jump out of an airplane.
Yeah.
Right? Wasn't that you?
That was me.
Yes.
I did it.
Yes.
Yeah. It's funny because I never would have thought of it as play, but I mean, now I guess, I don't know why I have such a tunnel vision about what play means, but I think I have to expand my definition of what play means.
And I'll give you one phrase that she gives. Non-purposed, no agenda.
Oh, no agenda. Well, that's for sure. That's
so playing with your puppy.
Check it off my bucket list. Was that an agenda?
Yeah, that was satisfying. Yeah. Let's see, another one, numbing and powerlessness, to cultivate a resilient spirit. So again, this whole season taught us, like, how can we be resilient? That means strong in spite of hard circumstances. In another book, Untamed by Glennon Doyle, she has a great phrase that I've embraced, is being human is not to feel happy all the time. It is to feel everything. And we need to be able to feel everything. So cultivating a resilient spirit means at some point we have to address and be aware of how we numb or go into powerlessness. And that could be eating, drinking, sex, shopping, gambling, social media,
Work. Work is
busyness.
At times. No, and I love Untamed. I mean, it's one of my all-time favorite books, and I recommend it to all women in midlife. So I'm so glad you brought that book up too. Glennon is phenomenal. And she says it like it is. So, love these very powerful voices. That's so important.
And so then to either, if you want to learn how to be resilient, we have to be able to look at what am I doing to numb? So be fully conscious of, am I doing that, or isolating even? Or if I'm aware that I'm numbing, then I have to cultivate resiliency. And she goes into the book, like, what does that look like as far as behaviors? Asking for help, have a belief that you can make a difference by your thoughts. So there's, again, actions towards building your resiliency in hard times. So those are kind of my three favorites. And really, I could speak forever on all 10. But in the workbook, if I could just skip to this, when your audience gets the workbook, I put a section just like she does in the book of go through these 10 and find one that resonates with you, that you feel like could make a difference in your life. Identify why and identify how you can put some actions into practice. Actions, not feelings. They will not be natural. It won't feel like you said, I don't even know what play is, but man, if I want that in my life, let's identify it. So I did put a little section like that in the workbook for your audience to be able to do some thought work of which one of these would make a difference for me. So it's not, I don't have to do it all, but I can make a difference in one place in my life.
Yeah, and Melissa's been so generous. She's gifting us this workbook that really gives us the summary and, as she's saying, that the next steps on how to bring that wholehearted living into your life and these 10 tools. She's also offering our audience another free gift. And do you want to talk about that one?
Sure. And can I talk about one other thing before that? Okay. If, let's say, you go through the 10 and you don't know where you could make the best difference for yourself, on Brené Brown's website, she has something called the Gifts Hub. And in there is a link to a wholehearted inventory. And so it's a little questionnaire that you can answer for yourself, and would probably pop up, hey, it looks like, your heart and soul could use some opportunities in this area. So there's a link if you have any trouble with that too.
Awesome. Yeah. Love it.
So the other workbook that I recently created, just probably out of my own needs and experience, is How to Age with Attitude, Grace, and Excitement. A lot of things that we kind of think we don't have or don't need, or it's impossible to get as we start getting older. And so I just put the 10 things that I learned through being a counselor, becoming a coach, through my own way too long midlife crisis. So through my education and my personal experience, I just put the top 10 things. Some of them may really sound like, oh yeah, I know. But honestly, as soon as we say, I know, then we shut off any potential learning and difference for ourselves. So I just made my top 10 list. And I'd love for your folks to have that too.
I love it. Now I'd love to also hear, just for our audience to hear a little bit more about you and how you work. I mean, it's fascinating to me that you're both a counselor as well as a coach. So talk to us about that and like sort of what you do in each of these arenas of your life. And I don't know how much crossover there is or how that works.
It has been an interesting transition. I will say that, very interesting for me, learning experience. So I became a counselor 12 years ago. In a whole other life transition. So counseling, and it's good for your audience to know this too, counseling does a lot of unpacking of maybe some clinical diagnoses, depression, anxiety, life transitions, where there may be some clinical issues that need to be addressed. There could be a lot of work healing from past traumas. Now, coaching does address a lot of those things, but does not stay in that category long. Whereas counseling can, because we can go deeper and deeper and deeper in order to build up. So what coaching does is it takes you where you are, whether there's trauma or anything else that you're dealing with. It takes you from where you are to get to a place that you want to be by holding the hand of that person. I know that you do that with your clients too. You know, it's like, so let's figure out from where you are, where do you want to be, and take everything we know about this and just move it forward. So it's a little bit of crossover, but it's really important to keep them separate so that your clients get exactly what they want and need in whatever season they're in.
Wow. So you work in both modalities right now.
I do both. Yeah. I know I have a very careful screening process.
Right.
And counseling I can only do in Louisiana and through telehealth. So we're bound by state lines and licenses, whereas coaching can be done as far as a computer can go.
Definitely.
And I do love that work because I get to talk to people like yourself and work with people like us who just want to build more in their lives. And man, that's exhilarating. So
yeah. And do you work mostly with women in midlife in both of your work areas, or are they both as a counselor and a coach, or do you feel like you have a different expertise area in one or the other?
Being the certified Daring Way has definitely brought the women, and now kind of being a midlife crisis to reconstruction coach, I'm definitely in the coaching realm, that demographic. Whereas my counseling, I go as low as teens. And so there's much more of a mixture there. But in my coaching, it's primarily women in the midlife crisis, so that help them get out of that stuff.
Yeah, no, fabulous. And we have just a few minutes left, so I would love to hear
went so fast.
I know, we're going so fast. I'd love to hear a little bit more how you got interested in women in midlife, sort of how your personal journey informed your interest in coaching women in midlife.
I appreciate that. I'll be honest, I did not identify with the term midlife crisis until I was years into it, which is unfortunate because I think if I had identified with that, I would have been able to target, okay, well, now let's figure out what it is. Because I think we go through so much of my spouse sucks, my job sucks, I think I'm just depressed, I'm bored. And so I had to go through so many different explorations, I guess, of what could this be, from counseling, talking to counselor friends of mine, and close families, until somebody said, oh, it sounds like you might be having a midlife crisis. I'm like, okay. So it's a thing. Let's talk about the thing. And so then I just started figuring out what that was. And then someone gave me the word reconstruction, that my crisis is just because we're evolutionary beings. And so I was ready for change. Now, let me preface this. I did not change my husband. I didn't explode a lot of life the way I could have, the way that we kind of get to the numbing and powerlessness, but I had to figure out, so if I want change, I want to feel something different about my life and my age. I turned 50 a couple years ago, and it's like, I want to feel different. I want to feel different with my spouse, in my job, in myself. And so that's all that is so how do I do that healthy and safely, and where life can be exciting again? And so once I embraced that, then I had to learn boundaries, communication, all over again. What does that look like now? And bringing in the Brené Brown piece, fully embracing that there is no shame in us wanting different. Even if the spouse has been perfect for 10 years or 15 or 20 years, or the job's been great for 40, I don't have to feel shameful that I want change about it. And when we embrace that part, then we can embrace the authentic piece that's inside of us today and moving forward. So when I got over kind of the hump of the crisis part, then I realized, oh my gosh, all of this. And then friends started coming to me saying, I'm in this season, tell me, what do I do? It's like, oh gosh, let me tell you what I did. Let me shorten this little time span for you, because I don't want you to struggle, my friend. So that's kind of a long answer, but it's why, I mean, it makes it passionate for me. I'm sure that's why it is for you too.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's always interesting talking to coaches about how they became a coach and how they chose their particular niche, because of course, as it's so often it's informed by our own personal experience, the need we had that we now want to help others with, because we have been in that place and we can just feel it so deeply and resonate with it so deeply, and use that motivation to, empower others around us. So it's, it's always interesting to hear the backstory to me, because there's a lot of commonalities, but everyone's unique too, and everybody's got their, the thing that kind of was their aha moment, or
the catalyst. Yeah.
So no, I mean, I'm sure you've heard it from other coaches too. So it's always an interesting thing to hear about.
Yeah, but I will say I do have the convertible that is my midlife crisis that I call it.
Yes, we all have to have our thing. Yeah. Exactly. So no, it's well, in Louisiana, you could probably drive a lot of the year with the top down, right?
It's pretty hot. I'm not sure I'll be keeping it for long. So, once I'm past that part. Yeah. That's funny.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe jumping out of the airplane was my kind of like, that was fun.
Something bold and badass. Yes.
Something like, what? Yeah. And I was turning 50 then. That was what, 7 years ago? Goodness. So anyway, well, you've been such a delight to talk to. I'm just so excited for everybody to listen to this. I'm really hoping everybody will come on and watch the replay. I'm going to post your website, the download your free gift, as well as the opt-in for your second free gift. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And really appreciate it. And go and check out Brené's work too, because all of her books, her website, everything. I mean, I think she's got a lot of stuff online too, as you were pointing out.
Yeah, and if I could just as a tie-up, so she herself on her podcast, Unlocking Us, is breaking down all 10 Wholehearted guideposts. They already had the intro, so you can go to Unlocking Us and listen to the intro, but tomorrow is the next one, and she's going through guidepost 1 and 2. So it's her and her sisters, and she'll be doing that. So the podcast is called Unlocking Us, and they can read along with her.
Yeah, check that out, Unlocking Us. I have listened to a couple of hers. I can't remember which episodes, but I've listened to a couple of them. But that's right, you had mentioned that she's doing that. So that's like a deep dive into each one for each. Very cool.
And as talking to her sisters, I'm sure that'll be pretty funny too.
That's going to be pretty funny. Yeah, because she gets into a lot of her personal life and stories and examples in her books. She's pretty, open and vulnerable as she is in her TED Talk and everything else. And that's one of the beautiful things about reading her work and watching her now and listening to her on her podcast. So it's awesome.
Very relatable.
Yes, very relatable.
And if your audience has any questions in the comments after the replay, I'll be sure and chime in. I'm happy to answer questions.
Yeah, that would be great. Please throw them in there. And I really appreciate you showing up today and educating us about this wholehearted living and some of the ways in which we can do it, and giving us all the tools to look at all the ways. So I appreciate it. And for our audience, if you enjoy these videos, please watch for more coming weekly. And until then, be well and stay safe, everybody. Bye.
Thanks, Ellen, for having me.
Welcome.